Welcome to Health 2660. Here we don't just talk about health, we tell the stories that heal. Now please listen to the story. Robert had always believed he would age gracefully. He pictured himself silver-haired, but spry, still puttering in his workshop, still telling jokes that made his grandchildren groan and roll their eyes, still dancing with the ladies at the community center on Saturday nights. He never expected his body to betray him so soon. At 72, he still woke up early, an old habit from decades working in construction. He'd been a foreman, a man who could heft beams and swing a hammer all day long, a man whose hands were as strong and calloused as oak bark. But now getting out of bed took more than willpower. It took a Herculean effort, a mental pep talk, and sometimes a muttered curse or two. His legs felt stiff, as if filled with concrete. His balance was shaky, and sometimes, when he stood too fast, the world tilted precariously, threatening to send him sprawling. He used to enjoy walking to the park, tending to the small garden his late wife Eleanor once loved. Eleanor had a green thumb, capable of coaxing roses to bloom in unlikely places, and the garden was her sanctuary. After she passed, Robert took over carefully watering her prize-winning hydrangeas and weeding with the kind of care that only comes from deep love. Now even walking to the mailbox, a mere 30 steps from his front door, left him winded, his chest tight, his legs aching. He'd have to stop halfway, leaning heavily on his cane just to catch his breath. Everyone told him the same thing. That's just old age, Robert. It happens to all of us. His doctor said it. His neighbors said it. Even his own daughter Sarah said it, though her voice was laced with a sympathy that stung more than any diagnosis. So he accepted it, or at least he tried to. He tried to resign himself to a life of slow decline, of creaking joints and dwindling energy, of watching the world from his armchair. But everything changed one quiet Tuesday. The sun streamed through the window of the local clinic, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air. Robert hated clinics. They smelled of antiseptic and fear, and they always seemed to amplify his sense of vulnerability. He was there for his annual checkup, a ritual he dreaded but knew was necessary. After the usual blood pressure reading and cursory exam, he waited patiently, flipping through a dog-eared magazine filled with articles about celebrities he didn't recognize and diets he couldn't possibly follow. Finally, a young nurse barely out of her 20s came to update him on his labs. Her name tag read Maria Rodriguez, RN. She had kind eyes and a gentle smile, and her voice was soft, almost musical. She noticed how slowly he moved, how carefully he lowered himself into the chair, how his hands trembled slightly as he adjusted his glasses. With a soft voice, she asked, "Are you feeling weaker lately, Mr. Henderson?" He nodded, avoiding her gaze. "Getting up is harder. My legs tremble sometimes. I get winded just climbing a few steps." He paused, then added, as if embarrassed, "But I guess that's just how it goes." She looked at him and smiled gently, not with pity, but with quiet confidence. "Not always," she said, her eyes sparkling with an almost conspiratorial glint. He blinked, surprised by her response. "What do you mean?" She leaned forward slightly, lowering her voice as if sharing a secret. "What if your body just needs the right kind of breakfast?" He blinked again, his brow furrowed in confusion. Breakfast. He'd been eating the same breakfast for years, a bowl of sugary cereal and a glass of orange juice. It was quick, easy, and tasted vaguely like his childhood. He couldn't imagine it being the culprit behind his woes. She tore a small sheet from her notepad and wrote down 4 ingredients in neat, precise handwriting. Then she circled the time 7:00, 8:00 a.m. Eat within an hour of waking up. Feed your muscles before the day takes it from you. The prescription was simple. 1/2 cup of cooked black beans, 1 soft-boiled or poached egg, 1 tablespoon extra virgin olive oil or 1 tablespoon avocado oil, a pinch of black pepper. Robert stared at the list, his mind reeling. Black beans, olive oil for breakfast. It sounded unappetizing and, frankly, a little ridiculous. He was about to dismiss it as the well-meaning but misguided advice of an overzealous young nurse when he saw the sincerity in her eyes. She genuinely believed this could help him. And for some reason, that belief, that small flicker of hope, was enough to make him agree. He folded the paper carefully and tucked it into his wallet, promising himself he'd give it a try. He didn't expect much, but he figured he had nothing to lose. The next morning, at exactly 7:00 a.m., Robert stood at his kitchen counter. The radio played softly in the background, an oldies station that reminded him of his youth. The house smelled of steam and memory, a comforting blend of coffee grounds and the faint, lingering scent of Eleanor's lavender soap. He took a deep breath and began to cook. He rinsed the canned black beans under cold water, watching the cloudy liquid swirl down the drain. It was such a small act, but he found something calming in it, almost meditative. He added the black beans to a small pot, covered them with water, tossed in a pinch of salt, and let them simmer quietly on the stove. The warmth rose from the pot, filling the kitchen with a quiet, earthy scent that reminded him of Sunday suppers from long ago. He set a pot of water to boil for the egg, then paused, remembering Eleanor's old trick, a splash of vinegar in the water to prevent the shell from cracking. He smiled to himself as he poured it in. Some habits stay with you, even after the person who taught them is gone. He timed the egg carefully, letting it cook until the white was just set and the yolk still soft, not runny, but tender golden and warm. He peeled it gently, like something fragile. Then, with slow, intentional movements, he plated everything. He drizzled the extra virgin olive oil over the beans, its scent grassy and rich. Finally, he ground fresh black pepper over the dish until the aroma hit his nose and stirred something inside him, something that had been quiet for too long. He sat at the table, the plate warm beneath his fingers. It wasn't fancy, but it felt real, nourishing, like care made visible, and he ate slowly, each bite a message to his body. We're not giving up. It wasn't the most delicious breakfast he'd ever had, but it was satisfying. He ate slowly, savoring each bite, paying attention to the way the food felt in his mouth and the way it settled in his stomach. He finished the plate and washed it carefully, feeling a sense of accomplishment he hadn't felt in a long time. And so the journey began. He didn't realize it then, but that simple breakfast was the first step on a path that would lead him back to health, back to strength, and back to a life he thought he'd lost forever. On the third morning, something felt different. He stood up from his chair, a sturdy oak piece he'd built himself decades ago, and didn't feel the usual stiffness. No grabbing the armrest, no second try. He simply stood his legs solid beneath him. He paused, surprised, and then sat back down just to test it. Again, he stood up easily without effort. It was a small thing, but it filled him with a sense of quiet elation. That night, the leg cramps didn't come. He slept through without waking to stretch or rub his calves, a common occurrence that had become a nightly torment. He woke up the next morning feeling refreshed and rested, a feeling he hadn't experienced in years. On day 5, he looked out the window at the mailbox just 30 steps from his front door. Last week, it felt like Everest. He'd had to stop halfway, his breath ragged, his legs burning. But today, he made it there and back without stopping to catch his breath. He even managed a small skip in his step, something he hadn't done since Eleanor was still alive. The cold air filled his lungs, and for a moment, he didn't feel old. He felt alive. He felt like the man he used to be, the man who could climb a ladder without fear, the man who could dance all night long, the man who could carry Eleanor across the threshold of their first home. The memory brought a tear to his eye, but it was a tear of joy, not of sadness. By day 8, sleep found him again, deep, quiet, and unbroken. The kind of sleep he hadn't known in years. He woke up and realized I didn't toss or turn once. He felt like he'd been transported back to his youth, to a time when sleep came easily and dreams were vivid and untroubled. He lay in bed for a moment, savoring the feeling, listening to the birds singing outside his window. He felt a profound sense of gratitude, not just for the sleep, but for the simple act of waking up feeling good. On day 10, he glanced in the mirror. He was shaving in the bathroom, a daily ritual he performed with meticulous care, when he glanced up at the mirror and stopped. Not younger. No, the wrinkles were still there, etched deep into his skin, and his hair was still stubbornly silver, but steadier, straighter posture, clearer eyes. His shoulders weren't slumped like before. He looked stronger. He saw a spark of vitality in his eyes that had been missing for years. He finished shaving, a smile playing on his lips. He liked what he saw in the mirror. He liked the man he was becoming again. On day 13, he faced the stairs again, slowly, steadily, and this time without fear. He didn't hold the railing. His house had 2 stories, and the stairs had become his nemesis. He dreaded climbing them, each step a reminder of his failing strength. But today, he tackled them head on, his legs surprisingly steady, his breath only slightly labored. At the top, he stopped and turned around. "I did it," he whispered, to no one, smiling to himself. He felt a surge of pride, a sense of accomplishment that resonated deep within his soul. On day 15, he walked to the little store down the street. No stops, no second thoughts. Carried 2 bags of groceries. Didn't stop once. "Mrs. Peterson," the cashier said, "looking strong today, Mr. Robert." He grinned and replied, "I feel strong today." The grocery store was a familiar haunt, a place where he'd shopped for years. But lately, the walk had become a struggle, and he'd had to rely on his daughter to drive him. Today, he walked there and back with ease, carrying 2 heavy bags of groceries without stopping to rest. He felt a sense of independence he hadn't felt in a long time. He felt like he was reclaiming his life one step at a time. On day 18, he reached for a mug on the top shelf, and only then realized he didn't wobble. His legs held firm. His hand was steady. It was such a small thing, but to him it felt like freedom. He'd always loved drinking his tea from a particular mug, a chipped and faded souvenir from a trip he and Eleanor had taken to the Grand Canyon. But lately, he'd been afraid to reach for it, afraid of losing his balance and falling. Today, he reached for it without hesitation, his body solid and strong. He took a sip of his tea, savoring the warmth and the memory. He felt a surge of gratitude for the simple things in life, for the strength to reach for a mug, for the taste of tea, for the memories that filled his heart. On day 20th, he stood at his kitchen window sipping tea. Morning sunlight warmed the floor. His breakfast sat before him: black beans, soft egg, olive oil, pepper. Familiar now. He looked at the stairs again, not with hesitation, but with certainty. He walked up. No pain, no pause, no rail, just movement. Fluid, effortless. He reached the top and walked into his old workshop, a space he hadn't dared to enter in months. He ran his hand along the smooth surface of his workbench, inhaling the familiar scent of sawdust and varnish. He picked up a piece of wood, feeling its weight and texture in his hand. He smiled. He was home. It wasn't magic. It wasn't luck. It was consistency. It was timing. It was feeding his body what it had needed all along. He hadn't needed expensive supplements or grueling gym memberships. He needed the right fuel at the right time, with a little movement and a lot of belief. What had really happened? Behind the scenes, that breakfast was working like a silent team of repairmen, diligently rebuilding his body from the inside out. Black beans gave his body leucine and isoleucine, amino acids that switch on muscle regeneration, even in older adults, counteracting the age-related muscle loss that had been plaguing him. These amino acids acted like tiny construction workers repairing damaged muscle fibers and stimulating the growth of new ones. Extra virgin olive oil helped him absorb fat-soluble vitamins like DA and K, critical for strong bones, healthy nerves, and reduced inflammation. And if olive oil wasn't on hand, avocado oil would have been just as good a heart-healthy fat packed with oleic acid. These vitamins acted like essential building blocks, strengthening his bones, calming his nerves, and reducing the inflammation that had been causing him pain. Eggs provided complete protein choline for brain muscle signaling and nutrients like lutein and vitamin D to support energy and balance. These nutrients acted like fuel for his body and brain, providing him with the energy he needed to move and think, and improving the communication between his brain and his muscles. Black pepper, with its natural compound piperine, unlocked those nutrients and told the body, "Use this now." The piperine acted like a key, unlocking the potential of the other nutrients and ensuring that his body could absorb and utilize them effectively. And just 10 minutes of light movement after breakfast told his muscles, "Wake up. It's time to rebuild." The movement acted like a signal telling his muscles that they needed to be strong and active. It stimulated blood flow, delivering the nutrients where they were needed most. On day 20th, Robert smiled to himself. He hadn't reversed time. He still had wrinkles. His hair was still silver, and his joints still ached occasionally. But he had reclaimed something even more important: trust in his own body. He had rediscovered the power of nutrition, the importance of movement, and the resilience of the human spirit. "I thought I was just getting old," he said quietly. "But maybe I was just underfed, undervalued. And today, I remembered what strength feels like." He walked back downstairs, his step light and confident. He had a garden to tend, jokes to tell, and dances to dance. If you think it's too late, too hard, too far gone, let Robert remind you. It took me only 20 days, one simple breakfast, and the choice to start. And it could take you even less time. The power to change your health lies within you. You just need to make the choice to start. Health 2660 thanks you for listening. We'll see you in the next video, and until then, be kind to yourself.